Hi, I'm David Henderson, Assistant Professor in Philosophy and Religion, and I am here with Tricia Shapiro, author of Mountain Justice, Homegrown Resistance to Mountaintop Removal for the Future of Us All. Well, tell me, Tricia, what is mountaintop removal? Why are we resisting it?
It's a very large-scale strip mining for coal, in which large machines blow up the top of a mountain, push the rubble off to the side, take off a layer of coal, blow up another layer of mountain, take off a layer of coal. Hundreds of mountains in Appalachia, in central Appalachia, have been dropped by several hundred feet this way. Mountaintop removal has affected well over 500,000 acres. It's taking place in southern West Virginia, eastern Kentucky, a small sliver of Virginia, a little sliver of Tennessee, all within not much more than a half day's drive from right here.
Wow, how long have you been involved in covering or been involved in this resistance?
Since I first started learning about mountaintop removal back in the middle of 2004, and at the beginning of 2005, activists who were launching a campaign of nonviolent civil disobedience against mountaintop removal gave me permission to follow them around and write about them, and that's where my book came from.
Okay. Why do you call it homegrown resistance? Why is that important? Or
it is, because my research focuses particularly on people living in the coal fields, fighting mountaintop removal that's directly affecting their homes. I think it's real important that mountaintop removal is in fact a national issue. It connects with a whole range of environmental and human justice issues that people all over the country are concerned about. But in resolving it and stopping mountaintop removal and moving forward into a better future, it's critical that the people who are actually living with this have a seat at the table and a voice in it, and that's why I chose to focus on them.
And I say the people whose homes are affected affected more than just losing their scenery?
Oh, yes. If you're living near a mountaintop removal site, your home is regularly rattled by blasting. A lot of people have had the foundations of their homes cracked. A lot of people have had rocks from the blasting is happening so close to people's homes that rocks flying off from the explosion land in their yards or on their houses. People's wells have dried up because the explosions have cracked the aquifers that their well relied on. Other people have had their wells poisoned by mining wastes filtering down into the water system. A whole range of ill effects, dust covering people's houses.
Okay. How pervasive are environmental health effects?
Anecdotally, I can say very pervasive. Unfortunately, nobody's done the large-scale public health study research work that would be needed to actually quantify that. It's hard to say. I do know that when you spend any time at all in any coalfield community, you meet a lot of people who are sick.
Okay. Now, the fights over the old growth forest in the Northwest, where I think even a lot of these activists sort of learned their techniques, they were widely characterized, at least in the media, as human versus nature, loggers versus owls, jobs versus trees. But there's human health and justice dimensions of this that make it hard to look at it that way. How is it perceived, or how should it be perceived? As what versus what? What's in competition here?
Life versus death. Human life and natural life. Anyone who's ever been to look at a mountaintop removal site, typically you think of it as you're seeing a deathscape. It's no longer really a landscape, and there's nothing living on it. The contrast is really stark if you actually go out and look at it. And yeah, life versus death.
Life versus death. So who's on the side of death? Why is it being done if it's that obvious?
A handful of coal companies are making a lot of money this way because they don't have to pay the environmental or human costs of the mining that they're doing.
But is that important to the economy? Don't we need more money? I mean, our GNP is down. How valuable is this mining activity?
Well, I guess it depends on how you calculate value. Like I said, a few people are making a lot of money off of this. The larger economy could do without mountaintop removal coal. It provides, I think a few years ago, it was on the order of 3% of the electric power in this country is generated using mountaintop removal coal. We could do without that just by making conservation efforts that we could implement today. It doesn't involve any great leap of technology. The bigger economic issue is that for the short-term gain of a relatively few people, we're destroying the economic, human, and ecological future of an entire region.
So this is a very short-term kind of way of mining.
Yes.
Can you continue to mine after?
Once the coal's gone, it's gone.
Okay. Now, one theme of your book that I thought was very interesting is a sort of odd marriage of convenience between, on one hand, culturally conservative, often Christian, Appalachian people who are fighting for their homes, and anarchist, punk, hippie, earth-first pagan who are living and working right alongside them. How is that relationship going?
I think that's the fact that very different people, including the two kinds of people you just described, can look at each other and see that they're having essentially the same spiritual experience with their relation to the woods and the mountains has given a basis for mutual respect and common ground that's helped glue this campaign together and made it possible for very different people to work together. They're very different in some ways, but they're also having a common reaction to this.
Okay. Marsh Fork Elementary School has been a big rallying point for this. Why has it been such a potent symbol for resistance? I mean, it seems like lots of the films and the books and your book focus on this one spot. Doesn't mountaintop removal happen over a much bigger area? Why the focus here?
It's quite a story. Marsh Fork Elementary is a school in Coal River Valley that's a few dozen yards from a coal preparation plant. The children going to school there are breathing coal dust and the chemicals used in processing the coal every day. Back behind the school is an earthen dam that's flawed, that's holding back billions of gallons of coal slurry. If it
What
goes,
is coal slurry?
It's a liquid waste that's a byproduct of processing coal. When they process it at the coal plant next to the school, they pump the waste up behind this dam. If the dam goes, the school goes. It's been a focus because it's a really egregious example, but it's only one example. You're right, this is taking place all over the region. And in fact, by focusing so much attention on it, finally, that Marsh Fork is a victory because a year ago, just about exactly a year ago, it was agreed that the state and the coal company and a large charitable contribution would build them a new school. So that's in the works now. And despite the fact that that problem is being solved, the movement hasn't gone away.
Okay, now the Upper Big Branch mine was right next to that school. How did that affect?
The explosion at the Upper Big Branch mine, it's just within 5 miles of the school. It's the same community is affected by this. 29 miners were killed in this explosion. That happened just 3 weeks before the announcement that the kids would get a new school. And combined, that sort of changed the dynamic to some extent in the local community that's affected by this. A large number of local people had been, there had been a kind of hardcore of coal company supporters, and there were a relatively small number of local people who were comfortable standing up and saying, no, mountaintop removal is something we must stop. The in-between were a large number of people kind of sitting on the fence. And you've still got that hard core of people supporting the coal company, but now a lot of the people sitting on the fence are more willing to say, hey, we really need to end this. We need to find a better future for ourselves.
Okay, so they
didn't
didn't say let's do more mountaintop so that we're not underground.
No,
it was they
no.
were angry at Massey.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Massey,
Massey
who
Energy, the
owns,
coal corporation.
yes, who in this particular community, all through the Coal River Valley, Massey controls, Massey subsidiaries own all the strip jobs as well as underground mines.
Okay. Does Massey show the same kind of regard for environmental regulations it does for the safety regulations?
Little regard, is that?
Okay. Fair enough. Now, I first met you at Appalachia Rising, a movement in D.C. about this. And I know you've got something coming up on Blair Mountain. How is this movement going?
It's Appalachia Rising was a gathering in Washington of about 2,500, several thousand people showed up for part or all of it. More than 100 people were arrested at the White House, demanding that Barack Obama do something about stopping mountaintop removal, which, if the EPA did its job and enforced the law, would not be happening. Mountaintop removal really is against existing law, against the Clean Water Act.
So not only is this heinous, it's already illegal.
Yes, it doesn't require a big policy change to change it. It just requires enforcing existing law. Appalachia Rising and now the March on Blair Mountain have been about expanding the constituency of people who care about this issue and demand that their politicians do something about it.
All right.
The March on Blair Mountain is coming up in June 5th to 11th. And it both commemorates a large labor conflict. People would like to preserve Blair Mountain as a historic site because of that. It's being threatened by a strip mine. But this march and demonstration are also about more broadly demanding an end to mountaintop removal and demanding that America invest in making a just transition to a more sustainable future.
Well, good luck with the March on Blair Mountain. Thank you for talking to me about your book, Mountain Justice: Homegrown Resistance to Mountaintop Removal for the Future of Us All.